extrovert. Okay, so what is your name?
Patrick Francis Norder.
What is your position, like your job position?
Head coach women's soccer,
For what school?
Montclair State University.
What is your educational background?
I received a bachelor's from Montclair in history, and I received my master's in teacher of the handicapped from Jersey City, New Jersey City State University.
Teaching of the handicapped?
Yes.
Was it different back then?
Yeah. So it
Like
was
mine's like teaching students with disabilities.
Yeah. So my master's is in as a teacher of the handicapped.
Okay, that's interesting. What is your work experience?
I taught special ed at Bloomfield High for 4 years. I taught special ed at Northern Highlands High School for 3 years. During those times, I coached high school boys soccer, and I've been coaching club soccer since I was 19 years old. So for 21 years, I've been coaching club soccer, and then camps and clinics and a wide array of stuff.
What are the skills required for a head college coaching job?
First and foremost is communication. You have to be able to manage the individuals you're playing with. You have to be able to communicate with alumni. You have to be able to communicate with recruits. You have to manage your coaching staff. You also have to coexist with support staff, so academic advisors and trainers, equipment room people, maintenance staff, as well as communicate with your bosses and let them know what's important, what you need. So it's a lot of communicating with different groups in different ways. It can't just be, the way you talk to the alumni is a lot different than the way you talk to your bosses, and recruits are a lot different than the way you talk to your players.
Makes sense. What are the responsibilities of your job?
First and foremost, I think the most important thing, and this is like the overarching theme, is to hold the standards of the program where I want them. And everything falls over that. So that's the big question I ask myself every day: is this acceptable? Is this all right? Is this what I want us to be? Is this what these kids should be? So whether it's an academic situation, behavioral situation, a way we're playing, a way we're training, a way we look, a way we're talking to a bus driver, I have to make that decision. Is this what I want our program to be? And with that, you have to pick your spots. You can't just be, which I'm trying to get a little bit better at. I always want things to be done a certain way, but I also have to understand not everything's as important as everything else, and not everything needs to be perfect. So, but the major responsibility is if I'm looking at a recruit and something comes up about them, is this something I can accept as part of our program? Is this something I want our program to be about, or not?
Is that always your personal opinion on whether or not something's okay, or do you talk to people like your coaching staff?
I'll talk to our coaching staff on occasion. I'll talk to other coaches, because ultimately I think they have the same ideas, but they're not emotionally attached. We have situations where we have to make decisions on whether or not kids can remain in the program or not. And we know what these kids are and what their background story is. And a lot of times you say, like, hey, I know being around our players will be good for this young lady, and this could be something that really helps them. And the emotional part of that is you want this kid who and you know her background story, you want her to be successful. But at the same time, then you have to weigh, is she doing more harm to our group? And then does she actually deserve to be helped by our group? And I'm a big softie. I feel like I want to help everybody because I got helped a lot when I was a college soccer player. and probably didn't deserve as many breaks as I got, and probably didn't deserve as much help as I got. So it's really hard for me to say like, I can't. We got to fire this kid, or we got to move on in a different direction with this kid.
What are some interesting aspects of your job?
I think the most interesting thing is you never know when you wake up. You never know what the day is going to hold. Like, you could have a kid come into your office with a major life struggle that they're going through, or you could get an email from a kid who you really want to coach and she's really interested in you, or you can get a text from an alum who's struggling professionally or personally or whatever, and you just never know what's going to pop up on your phone or who's going to pop up at your office. And it's very exciting. It's a little bit stressful. It's very sporadic. And then there's other days where nothing happens, but that's the most interesting part, like the chaos of it, where you never know what's coming
Always
down.
on your toes.
Yeah, what's coming down the pike with it.
If you don't mind telling me, what is the average potential earning for this job?
No, a lot less than the teacher salary. So
Yeah.
when I left teaching, I was at a very high paying district. I was in my 8th year with a master's, and my salary that first year was $23,000 less when I
Wow.
took the coaching job. I'm very fortunate to be in a state school where we're unionized workers, where we are on a pay scale that is the same as professors.
Okay.
So we get a bump based on our experience.
So, like levels with teachers?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. So our pay scale is it's a little bit more conservative, where I think our coaches are starting in the mid 40s, and then you can average about $2,000 or $3,000 more a year, and it can get up to a football coach who's been here for 38 years. So he's probably doing pretty well.
Yeah.
There are other schools that will pay, but private schools aren't bound by like a pay scale. So if I were to look to go to a private school, I could make significantly more money.
Okay.
If I could look to go to a Division I school, I could make significantly more money.
I was going to ask you that.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any promotional steps to achieving this job?
Yes. So they do have performance-based increases where you can apply and say, since I did X, Y, and Z, can I bump up on the scale? So not only yearly goes left to right, and then the steps you can jump higher up the pay scale. So that might include if you get a master's in athletic administration,
Okay.
and then are able to take on some more administrative duties, they'll pay you more for it.
So it's not winning games, it's
No.
your education.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it's your education, what you can do around here a little bit better. With that, once you're the weirdest thing about this part for me is I started getting into working with soccer when I was 19, and I couldn't make any money. Like, I was just volunteering. I was just like reffing games for a couple bucks. Like, I wasn't, when I needed money, nobody would give me money. But now that I've had experience and some success, now people keep on throwing money at me. And to do a one-day camp or to do an overnight camp, you can make some decent coin off of it. The crazy part is how much you can make off of youth soccer now in the club
believe that,
situation, where I have friends of mine who don't take teaching jobs because they're making too much money in club soccer. Now there's a quality of life aspect because club soccer is nights and weekends. So as soon as we're done with the college group, the phone call I just had was about the 3 tournaments I'm going to in November. Hopefully not, because hopefully we're in the NCAA tournament. And then I'll be working 3 nights a week and then working every weekend. But it's not volunteer work. I'm getting paid.
Yeah, but you're
I'm
getting
getting
paid
paid
for
real well for it.
And that's just the coach?
Just the coach.
Wow.
I have a team manager. I don't do administrative stuff. I argue with kids who haven't paid the bills.
I know about that. My mom was that person.
Yeah.
I heard about that.
Yeah. Those people deserve to get paid.
Yeah, that's what she said.
Yeah, so absolutely.
And last intro question, what are the special requirements for this job? Or is there like a specific personality that you need to have for this job?
You got to be very funny. No, I'm just kidding. So the characteristics is, one, you have to have at least a bachelor's degree, because this is an educational position. So if I'm just coaching club, there's no educational part of it. But the majority of college soccer jobs require at least a bachelor's and prefer a master's. And I think I know if I was hiring even an assistant, I would want them to be a college graduate and possibly have just more education, because those are people who show that education is important in their life, and I think that's an important aspect to pass on to the student athletes. So that's like, as far as requirement goes, a job like this, they're gonna want experience, like proven experience in recruiting with NCAA rules and regulations, all that stuff. And then as far as a personality type, I think first and foremost, you have to have a nice balance between competitiveness and pragmatism, and realizing that ultimately the ability to zone out and say, like, you don't control results, you control the process and you control the environment. And the parts where I feel like I've failed is when results start to take the place of the process, and when my competitive side takes over that pragmatic side. And that's where I think I have to, in those times, I just kind of have to reset it and say, okay, are the kids all right? Are they working hard? Are they doing the best they can? And then if a ball hits a post, the ball hits a post. And if we give up a soft goal, we give up a soft goal. But ultimately, when your structure is good, when your organization is good, when your environment is good, when your culture is good, the results will be better than if not.
Okay, so now into actual questions. What is the best part of your job?
Going to practice every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, you hang out with 25 kids who are playing college soccer, and it reminds you of the time in your life when you were playing college soccer, and it's just awesome. The energy of those guys, the things they're nervous about, the things they're excited about, the things that they're the things important is awesome. It's just awesome, and it's so much better working with young college kids than it is with adults. It's just so much more fun. And being the guy who gets to give them advice and or alleviate fears, or just tell them they're doing fine. Like that's a really cool part. That's the best part of the day. I love practice.
Okay. Hang on, let me get my spot again. What is the worst part of your job?
The worst part of the job is you make 100,000 decisions every day, and when things don't go right and you see those kids disappointed, then you go back over every one of those 100,000 decisions, and you tear yourself apart about what we could have done differently, what I could have said differently, what decisions, were we in the right formation, did we have the right personnel, did we do the right things at practice, and it's the hardest part is kind of separating yourself from all of that, and not taking ownership of all of it, of seeing kids you care about being disappointed, because ultimately there's 472 college soccer teams, and we know that we want to be the best one. So the chances of that, just mathematically, are very difficult. So like no matter what, you're going to put a ton into it, and almost all the time you're going to be disappointed. because you're going to want one more game, and you're going to want to win that one more game. And there are times where we've had great seasons, and you look back and you say, yeah, no, but I wanted to win one more game. And that's when your job comes down to, and I know personally it doesn't come down to a record, but when people say, hey, how's work going? If I'm talking to my brother who's an accountant, he's not going to tell me how much money he saved a company. He's going to say good. When I say good, people say, what's your record? Are you guys ranked? Are you guys going to make the tournament? And then nobody wants to hear about the injuries, or nobody wants to hear about the bad call the referee made in this game. It's no. Hey, did you guys win a national championship? No. So hard to do that, but the only people who know it are the 30 people you go through the process with.
In your opinion, what is the most important aspect of your job?
Helping kids and looking out for kids. The job is really soccer's just the commonality that puts us in the room together. But the thing I can bring is experience, and good experiences and really bad experiences, and I can share those if I'm open and honest with the kids, and let them know that life's not fair, and sometimes things don't work out the way you want them to, and I think that's really important. I think that's the most important part. Winning games and all that kind of stuff. Like I said, that's a byproduct. That's not the core of the job. The core of the job is to show kids how to deal with disappointment, how to respectfully win games, how to handle yourself with a little bit of pride and that kind of stuff, and how to really commit to a goal that might not be achievable or that might be far-fetched, but to really go for something.
What are your long-term goals as a coach, for your team, whatever you want to touch upon?
Win a national championship. And I think that, for me, that's important for lots of reasons. I think so much of Division III athletics and so much NCAA athletics is driven by money and driven by privilege, and I love the fact that we've been able to compete at a really high level with at a state school, and I think that's really important and really impressive. Where the majority of schools in the country that do really well on the Division III level are the elite academic institutions across the country, and I'm sure they have challenges, and I'm sure they have great kids and whatever, but they're not me, and that's not where I went to school, and that's not my background. And I think it would be so cool, not for me individually, and not only for the kids we have, but the kids who played here, the people who've worked here, the kids that we're gonna try to get here. I just think that I know it's possible, but until you do it, nobody else really knows it's possible. So for me, that's it. If they have that number one team in the country, then they're keeping score. I want to be it, and I get it. I get it. It's very, very difficult, but why not? Why settle for a good goal when you can have the ultimate goal?
What are some of the challenges that you talked about that you think you face, and the private school is not? Is it financially? Is it?
Yeah. So I think the biggest. So it's definitely financially. There are schools that we compete against that have unlimited recruiting budgets.
Oh, wow.
That go across the country, that can fly kids in to show them their school and all that stuff. Where we have a $700 recruiting budget.
Wow.
So we have to be very resourceful. And there's advantages to this place that other places don't have, but ultimately we don't have full-time assistant coaches. We don't have a full-time strength and conditioning coach. Those are things that affect performance of student athletes. And then it's also just the inability to attract the best student athletes in the country because of those finances. Now the way you get around that is you find the best kids, and you find kids who want to buy in and want to work and want to fight and have a little bit of chip on their shoulder. And I don't think I'd be as successful if I had a roster full of kids from Southern California and the Midwest and all that kind of stuff. I think I do well with New Jersey kids. Being interviewed, don't interrupt.
What are other important roles that need to be played in order to make a collegiate women's soccer team run smoothly?
So here, I think fundraising is a big part of it. We gotta get involved. We gotta do stuff. So, I don't have a ton of requirements over the summer, and that's when I work real hard at running camps and doing things that bring income in, so that when we go on the road, we can get good food and we can stay in decent hotels and we can do those things. But we could also schedule games on the road because those aren't covered in the budget as well as they need to be. So for me, it's finding out, and I guess it is the same ways everywhere, find out what the concerns or what the challenges of your job are and try to make those easier. For us, they're financial. So we should try to make money and figure out a way to get money to the assistant coaches and into fundraising.
How do you divide the responsibilities between yourself, your coaching staff, and your players?
First thing is I try to bring in a coaching staff that has strengths and attributes that I do not have. Bring in people who can do the things that I can't do and who balance me out well. And then there are some things that the first 5 years I tried to do everything, and I wasn't good at everything, and I really, really struggled. Since then, I realized get good people and let them do their thing. There's also going to be personality types that mesh better with kids, and I've done a much better job of allowing some coaches to really handle the individual relationships with certain people, as opposed there's some kids that no matter what, it's oil and water, you just don't mesh, and there's other kids that no matter what, you're always going to get along with them because you just see the world the same way. So just trying to find out, okay, I don't relate to this kid well, but maybe somebody else does. So here's a perfect example. I wasn't the rock star player. I wasn't an All-American. I wasn't an All-Conference player. I don't know the pressure that some kids feel of, okay, it's 0-0 and you're the kid who needs to score the goal, or you're the kid who needs to make the save. I don't get that. I was a role player. I was a tertiary player. So I do get the frustration of I've done everything this coach wants and I didn't get him any playing time today because I feel like I've been in that situation. So I can deal with those guys a little bit better, where some our other coaches were all very good players and always had that responsibility on them and always understand like what it's like to be the kid. So I kind of let them deal with that stuff a little bit better. I feel like I need to let the kids handle a lot more of responsibility. I think if I had this year back, the one thing I need to do a better job of is having kids dictate what they want, with my guidance, what they want this thing to be about. And a lot of my management is top down, where I rely on that experience. And I said, this worked in 2014, so it's going to work again. And when you get top down leadership with kids, maybe it's kids today, maybe it's this generation, there's less buy-in, where they're a lot more distrustful of kids growing up in the 90s. This coach won a lot of games, you're going to listen to him. Where kids now have their own ideas and their own opinions and all that stuff. And I haven't done a great job realizing that in time. So I think perfect example is, okay, who do you guys think should be the captain? They're your captain. They're not my captain. They're your captain. Who do you guys think they should be captain? Why? These are the attributes I need from a captain. What are the attributes you guys need from a captain? And I think another idea is as far as a fitness test.
like, you guys, what do you think an appropriate fitness test is? Like, what is going to get, and now how do we get there? And then what happens if we have kids who don't make it? And I think that way it's coaches making us do this. There's no buy-in, but we've decided to do this. I think there's a lot more power in that. And that's going to be the biggest change going forward for me. And like I said, I feel like I got that really wrong, where I wish I had made that realization 18 months earlier, that I need these guys to feel like they're, because it's ultimately their team while they're here, and I just kind of oversee it. Give them more ownership in the decision-making process of those things that affect them the most.
We kind of touched upon these next two questions, but how do you determine whether or not you are doing a good job as a coach?
If the kids want to be there, and by there I mean together. If kids want to be in the weight room, if kids want to be in study hall, if kids want to be on the bus, if there's energy, if I have to quiet kids down before I start practice, then they want to be there, and that's good. It was the same philosophy I had as a teacher. Get them to want to come to your classroom, and you can trick them into learning stuff. But if they feel like, holy cow, I got to sit in this guy's room for the next 45 minutes, you've got to break that down. So I know when our kids feel like they want to be a part of it. That's awesome. And there's been years where we've been really successful, but it's just been so stressful that kids couldn't wait for the season to be over. Wow. And you actually saw body language where kids felt relieved that it was over. And then you have other times where you just want to be around them more, and they want to be around you more. And this year I think is one of those years where I love being at practice and I love being around the team. And we have 3 losses and 3 ties, and to the outside world that might not be successful or good enough or whatever, although we still have a great opportunity for the next 2 weeks to kind of change our story. But for me, it's been wildly successful because we've got a group that had a little bit of dysfunction, a little bit of crazy, and worked through it and stuck together. And we've got a really good group of kids, and I'm still seeing that energy and camaraderie, even though we've lost 3 great kids to injury, like 3 kids who are really important to that camaraderie and chemistry and experience. We haven't had them around every day, and I think the older kids who have been around have been great, and the younger kids have shown a willingness and a hunger to keep this thing going in the right direction. And I don't know, you win games you shouldn't win, you lose games you shouldn't lose, and in the end it all shakes out. But I think that part will, for me, playing college soccer was the best thing I've ever done. And that's what I want to make sure these kids have a great experience doing it. And I think we've been successful with that this year.
So the same thing. So you would determine this season a successful season because everyone wants to be there.
Yeah. Now, if kids quit on the next 2 games and we have a bad run in the postseason, and when the lights get turned on a little brighter, do kids react negatively? Then no. And that's the other thing. Everything can change at any moment. In a big way. Like, we could be sitting here and be like, we're 9-3-3. We could be going to a Final Four this year and not even know it yet. You don't know what the next 2 weeks bring, but all you got is today, and I really like where we are today. I really like where I am with the coaching staff right now. I really like where I am with the players. I really like where I am with recruits. I really like where I am with the alumni, and really like where I am with my boss. So I think as a university, we should be really proud of what our women's soccer program is all about. And I think as a school, we should be really proud of where our athletic department is. And the people who know what we're doing and know what we're about and have the opportunity to be around us are really proud of us. And I think that's the best part.
A little bit different here, but how do you go about preparing to play different teams each week?
Two things. One, we look at what we do well, and we try to figure out how to enhance what we do well. So where can we take advantage of our strengths against the other team's weaknesses? And then the other part is find out what the other team does well and try to take that away from them, or make it less dangerous. So a perfect example would be if you have a team that's not very athletic out wide, we are going to try to get the ball out wide because we tend to be more athletic than teams out there. If you have a team that likes to drive the ball behind people and being aware of what those situations are going to look like and what our positioning needs to reflect those situations. But ultimately, it's important to realize I'm not coaching against the other team, I'm still coaching my team. And I can't change and say like, okay, now all of a sudden we're going to do X, Y, and Z if we can't do X, Y, and Z. Even though you might need to do X, Y, and Z to win the game, if you can't do X, Y, and Z, don't ask them to do X, Y, and Z. Like keep it simple and just say we're gonna be Montclair State. However, this is what we need to tweak, or this is what we need to be aware of. The less changes you can make, the better.
How do you create these practices to prepare for the different teams?
So that has changed a lot. I did a lot of work this summer on figuring out how to keep minor injuries away, and for the most part, we feel like we've been successful with that. So the first concern is, where are we in terms of games? From when did we last play? And that's going to determine how much work we should give the kids, and when are we going to play again. Then off of that, what do we want to accomplish? So today, we feel like is a perfect opportunity to really get after it and really stretch our legs and really, really, really work on our fitness and being able to play tired. So because we had time off, we had a good session yesterday, and we have time to recover before we play again. So that's what we're going to look to do. And then one, make it interesting. Do something different, because a lot of our daily life is repetition. You go to the same classes, you sleep in the same bed, you eat the same food. So if practice is repetitious, it's going to be boring. You're going to know what's coming next. So we want to do things a little differently. Make sure we're competitive. Make sure it's fun. Make sure it's upbeat. And then lastly, give you guys what you need in as condensed a package as possible, because that's the way of the world today. Nobody's waiting 4 hours to do anything anymore. So it's like everything has to be immediate and upbeat and fast-paced.
Does every player at practice do the same exact thing every day, or
No.
does that change?
No. Just like not everybody wears glasses. You get what you need when you need it. So some kids might need more training. Some kids might need more rest. Some kids might need we might be positionally specific. So we'll split offensive, defensive players. Goalkeepers will do completely their own thing all the time. And yeah, depending on if you play 90 minutes, you might need to stretch and foam roll and do that stuff to get your legs back underneath you. And if you only played 10 minutes, you might need to get on the ball a little bit more and work a little bit more.
You talked about taking bad losses this season. How do you keep your players motivated after this happens?
By motivating myself. I think ultimately, when your name's on the wall, there's a lot more eyes on you. So if I try not to talk to players after games as much as I used to, because I'm so spent, and I'm not very good at handling my emotions. So sometimes I can get super negative or super upset after a game, and at the same time super upbeat, super positive, and that just leads to highs and lows, and that's not what you want. You want to keep consistent messaging. So I need to get away. I need to process it on my own terms. I need to look at the game again, get the emotions out of it, and be, did we defend well? Did we pass well? Did we work hard? Did we do those things well? The things that we can control, did we do them well? And if so, then it was a good performance. And I think our last game was a terrible loss and a great performance, and that's unfortunate. That's partly because we're a younger and more inexperienced team right now. But you just get back at practice and say, like, all right, here it is. these are the facts, and what are we going to do? Here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to work and head down and keep going and make sure this is a good place to be. And I think the more often you do that, the more regularly kids will follow you. If they see you upbeat and ready to go and not panic, they're not going to panic. So they get there, they feed off of your nonverbal cues as well.
You talked about getting student athletes to buy into your program. What do you do if some players are not doing that?
Fire them.
Oh boy.
So you try to figure out, like, the first thing is you try to make sure they understand what the requirements are. The second part is you try to tell them why it's good for them. Like, why are you guys going to want to buy into it? And that's hard for me because that's the only thing I had. I didn't have a lot of athletic ability. I wasn't very talented, gifted, whatever. But I just loved being a part of a team, and I love training. I love the atmosphere of a game day. I love, like, and to have some kids take that for granted is shocking to me. Like, I didn't think I was going to play college soccer. So the fact that I got to was like, holy shit. And then the fact that they didn't cut me was like, holy shit. And then the fact that I tricked my way onto the field a couple times was like, I don't get, I can't relate to that. And what I have to do is realize that the whole world has changed. So a lot of these kids are being taught at age 5 that they're special. Like, and I wasn't special. Like, my parents did a great job of reminding me why I wasn't special, and that I was average, and that I just had to work hard. So they're coming at it from a much different point as I am. But if you can convince a kid that they're important to our success, and that and that our success, they'll be rewarded for our success, and just connect those dots for them, you have a better chance. Unfortunately, some kids only want 2 dots. They want to play and be rewarded. And delayed gratification is very foreign to a lot of kids now, where sometimes you do things and do things and do things and do it the right way, no shortcuts, and work, and you feel like you're not getting the rewards you get. And then you're 39 years old or 40 years old, and you realize, like, holy shit, I learned a lot of really important lessons back then. But a lot of kids aren't patient and don't want that, and want to take shortcuts and want to conditions. And you have to decide, can we help this kid change their mind, or are they bringing us down? And we've certainly had some situations where we have kids who feel like they're more important than the group, and feel like what they need to do is more important than what we need to do, and then we can't work. Like, once you have kids who are pulling in different directions, like, you're not a group at that point. So sometimes it's important to try to get them back in, and if they're not, cut them, get them out, and then the group sees that, like, okay, you get stronger that way.
A little change again. What do you do in the off season? Obviously, you're not coaching at this point.
Yeah, you recruit nonstop, you fundraise nonstop, and you try to do a couple other things. So for me, it's coaching club soccer, which helps. It's really important to have a network. It's really important to make sure you're seen at as much as possible as a Montclair State assistant coach. So I'll go to high school games. Need me here? Being interviewed. No, I'm kidding. Come on. So it's important for me to be seen as the Montclair State assistant coach, because then the more interactions people have with you, they're going to associate that with Montclair State. So when a kid's looking for a school, or a really good coach is looking for a job, or whatever, people will say, hey, what about Montclair? We'll just get in touch with that guy. So that's a lot of it. Like, you got to wear the hoodie and show up to a high school game and shake hands and listen to people, and, you know, much rather be sitting at home and watching a movie. But that's what I do the majority of the time. I've started to do a lot more talking, so I'm gonna present at a high school dinner.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Like, be a guest speaker at that. I do a lot of recruiting talks, and one of the reasons I like to do that is because I like to talk, obviously, but because I think kids get really bad advice with recruiting, and I think I can provide a different perspective of it, and we've got some really good players because a friend of a friend was in the room and said, hey, you should talk to the Montclair guy. So it goes back to that. A lot of those things I'm not getting paid for them or anything like that, but if you continue to work and continue to work and continue to work, you'll find out that something you did might have paid off in a big way down the road. But so that's one of the things. And then ultimately, I try to find excuses to be around the kids as much as possible. Find out when they're working out, and I just like being around them. You know, everybody says like one of the D3, you don't have a lot of time with the kids. You don't have to work a lot. Like, that's the good part for me. I hate being in my office. I hate pounding away on the keyboard. So I like to try to find reasons to be around the players.
Obviously, well, I'm assuming you make the schedule in the off season. How do you pick out of conference teams to play?
Yeah, it's the I was just telling somebody the other day, it's the most important part of the job, because if you have a bad team and a great schedule, you can still be okay. If you have a great team and a terrible schedule, it doesn't matter. So so much of this thing, like if you're trying to get in the NCAA tournament, comes down to strength of schedule and all that stuff. So you have to predict how a team's going to be, and you go on past results, but also you got to kind of like figure out who are they playing. So there are some teams that play really hard schedules and are very good teams and end up 500, and you realize that's not a great team to play. There's other teams that you can beat up pretty good, and you look up and they're 10-4, and it looks like a really good win. So it's a lot of work, but then also you try to get lucky sometimes. You know, I try to balance it into thirds. I'll know our conference really well, who's going to be very good, who's going to be good, and who's going to be rebuilding. Not that they're easy to play against, but I know on paper they're not going to have a great resume. So you try to evenly manage that, because if you only play great teams, you're going to be worn out, and you're only going to have probably 13, 14 kids getting a good experience. If you only play bad teams, then you're not going to be ready for those tough games. So try to find as many of that really good group as that group that's going to be rebuilding, and then fill it in with the middle group. And then you got to figure out, you know, are you traveling too much? Are you home games and away games, and what dates work out? So it's a ton of. We have a listserv. I'll put out it's one of the things I'm going to do today. We have 2 more dates because frustrating part. I thought I was done with scheduling 2 weeks ago, and then we had 2 teams not honor their commitments, and one team felt that we were too playing us, even though they won the game. They didn't want to play us anymore because we play too hard. And then you have another team who just said, like, hey, listen, we're not going to be good enough to play you next year. They understand that. So got to fill in 2 more games. So we have a listserv who goes to every coach in the country, and I'll say Montclair State's looking for a home game on this day and a away game on that day. Give me a call. We'll go from there.
Last but not least, do you have any advice for someone who wants to become a collegiate soccer coach?
Yeah, work. It's all of it. Like everybody, best advice I was given was, you're always interviewing. Like, so when you interview, you put on the nice clothes, you show up early, and you make sure you don't use any bad words. But if you do that all the time, like every time I sit down and watch a game and I talk to somebody else, they're making a decision on me, and it's important. And you just have to realize that you're on display all the time. So, 1, present yourself the right way. B, look, talk, act like the guy who's going to get the job they want, not the job they have. 2, you got to get better. And that's something I've really gotten into the last 2 years, is really figuring out what I can do better, instead of saying, oh, we get hurt because we don't have a strength coach. Bullshit. I have to do a better job keeping us healthy, and say, hey, Why are our kids getting worn down? So this one is, I don't think, just as we talked about earlier, I think the kids need more input. We need more bottom-up leadership as opposed to top-down, the old man telling them what's a joke. And kind of figuring out what programs have done that. Who can I learn from? Who do I need to learn this stuff from? And then get in the room and learn it. So I've been reading as much as possible on these things, and there's a ton of information out there. But you just got to realize nobody is good enough, and everybody's got to keep working at it.
Like it. Thank you.
And the last thing, be patient. Everybody wants a great job right away. Nobody's got a great job right away. It's funny, like in my whole time, I never thought I'd be sitting here at Montclair State as the head coach. But when you look back, all those nights I worked the summer league in the rain and showed up and did a good job led to this. And the network that I developed from being a hardworking good kid into being a hardworking decent adult allowed me this opportunity. So there was no like payoff. There was no like, if you do X, Y, and Z, then you're going to get this opportunity. But thank God I did X, Y, and Z because it led to this opportunity.